All right, let's pray. Father, thank you so much for the opportunity we have to be here. We're grateful, Father, for your word. We're grateful for the power of it. We're grateful, Father, of what it can accomplish in our lives and the changes that can happen because of it. We pray your blessings upon us as we study it this morning. Help us to find what it is that you have to say to us and what you're trying to get across to us. And help us, Father, to strive to apply these things to our lives. Thank you again for your son. Thank you for on this day. Lots of folks will be going to church today. And I pray, Father, that those that will be here, that we will make them feel comfortable, make them feel warm and welcome, and we thank you for that opportunity. Father, bless us as a church as we move forward, as we strive to do the things that we need to do, as we strive to do the things you call this church to do. I pray, Father, you give us insight, give us wisdom, give us courage to step into those places where we need to step into. And thank you, Father, for the opportunities. Bless us, encourage us, lift us up this morning. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Okay. 1 Thessalonians chapter 3. You know, we started this kind of idea started, and I'm gonna go back because I know I see some people in here that haven't been in here before. Paul wrote to the church at Thessalonica on his journey through Macedonia, and he was, if you go to Acts 17, I'm not going to go there again, but if you go to Acts 17 and read what happened, he was teaching, and there was a prominent people that came to believe, and at some point, the prominent Jews of the day, they got upset for what he was teaching, and so they decided to cause problems like they did everywhere else, and eventually a man named Jason is arrested. He has to put up a bond, and they kind of scurry Paul and Silas and Timothy out the back door and send them on their way. Well, he writes this letter, and you remember what we looked at last week. He said, I feel like I've been torn in two. Feel like an orphan. I've been an orphan. You know, he had a great relationship with these people in the short time, because he's only probably there 3 months. 2, 3, 4 months is all he was there. But he had a great relationship, and that happens, and what we looked at, that happens because of the gospel of Christ. That happens because it changes us and binds us together. Jesus prayed in John 17 that we would be all one, and we all have the same spirit, and we do that we become as one individual, as one entity. And that's what happens when you start to be obedient to the text, when you start to be obedient to God. You know, the binding together and making, you know, I've told Dan Marshall many times that if it had not been for the gospel of Christ, he and I would never have interacted in our lives except in a bad way. He was a cop, I was not. We would have had contact, but it wouldn't have been on a good point. It just wouldn't. But what happened, the gospel brought us together to where we are looking at each other from a completely different perspective. And I'm going, you know, wow, this is amazing. And Paul alludes to it at the end of chapter 2. And at the last verse, he said, I want you to look at he said, indeed, you are our glory and joy. He looked at these people, and he looked at the converts that he was involved in, and he said, that's the glory and joy that we shoot for. And I told you that if you don't understand that every convert that is converted here, every one of them, whether you sat across the table from them, whether you studied the Bible with them, whatever you did, you had a hand in that conversion. You understand that? By what the thing, you know, there are going to be people, maybe they're going to be converted because they're going to watch these kids out there this morning. I can only imagine what that looks like. I've never seen it. I can only imagine. I've always been in here. But I can imagine seeing all these little crumb snatchers running around looking for eggs. You don't think that's going to make an impact on somebody? I can tell you that our trunk or treat has made an impact on numerous people. And it may not be your call to roam around the parking lot and roam around the crowd and try to bring people to Christ. That may not be your deal. But you know what's not my deal? I don't want to do a trunk and dress up as somebody and act like a fool. That I don't want to do, because for me it would be act like a fool. I don't want to put on a big smiley face costume or a big, I don't know what some of the things that Robert Smith has put on. Not on your best day are you going to get me to do that. But you know what? It takes all of us. And you need to understand that what we're doing here is we're striving to be an evangelistic church. We're striving to touch people in the community. And we're doing that. We're doing that. So when you put, somebody gave me this a while ago, said, I'm not going to be here. Would you put this in? I don't have any idea. I'm not going to look at it. Not my business to look at it. I'm going to put it in the collection plate this morning. You know what he's going to do? What that person has done? That person has just invested in the evangelistic outreach of this church. It's all right, guys. It's okay. It's just a chair. All right. So I wanted you to look at that last verse before we get into this and see. He said, "This, you are our glory and joy. You are the people that we think about and we pray about and we honor you." And then look at what he says at the beginning, and we're going to read the first 5 verses. So when we could stand it no longer, you understand what he said? We couldn't stand it any longer being apart from you. We thought it best to be left by ourselves in Athens. We sent Timothy, who is our brother and God's fellow worker in spreading the gospel of Christ, to strengthen and encourage you in your faith. You hear what he said? We're a team. I know when Booty and I and James Alderson and Richard Rendon, and I forget other people. Dennis Tom went a couple of times. There was people. We were a team. We went to the jail and we were a team. And we were very effective in what we did. All right? Very effective. We went 2 or 3 times a week. We went on Sundays and we sang and worshiped with them. We were a team. But I can tell you what, Booty and I went many times. We went every other Sunday. He and I would go. And when Booty couldn't go, it was not the same. Because I didn't feel the same. When I couldn't go, he didn't feel the same. Because we were a team. So when he says here, can we stand it no longer, we decided to be left by ourselves in Athens. Now that's Timothy. This is Paul and Silas. Remember where Paul and Silas come from? You remember hearing about them before? Where'd you hear about them? At Philippi. Remember? They're in chains in Philippi, singing and praising after they've been beaten half to death. And the Philippian jailer is converted because of what he sees them doing after the earthquake, right? And he decides, I'm going to kill myself because my prisoners escaped, and all the chains have come off, and Paul and Silas are still there. He said, don't hurt yourself. We're still here. And he takes them home. Bandages them up, and has converted him and his whole house. Then come along the next journey, Timothy comes along. Okay? He's a young man. He needs to be circumcised. They circumcise him. He goes with them. You understand the camaraderie these 3 had? So when you hear him say, we thought it best to be left by ourselves, part of our team. If you've been, George and I have been married 51 years. Okay? 51 years we've been married. And it would, we are at the point where we're looking at some point this is going to be over. Okay? And we'll have to deal with that. But you know what it's going to feel like? It's going to feel like somebody's cut my arm off. That's what it's going to feel like when that happens. It's the way it will feel. It will. It feels like a hole in your heart. That's how he feels, guys. Understand? When Mark was, because Mark and I were not getting along really well, and Mark said, and he came in and he threw his enlistment papers on the, he said, there. What do you think about it? Okay? And he's going to the Navy. Good for you. See ya. Hope you have a great time.
Yeah, but he showed you, didn't he?
Yeah, he showed me. Yeah. Best thing he ever did. Absolutely. But I can tell you, when Kevin left, but we were expecting it from him. When Kevin left, it broke his mother's heart. Broke her heart. Because he just looked one day and said, I'm out of here. And boom, he's gone to Indiana. Left. And she cried. I mean, it broke her heart. And like somebody ripped her apart when her son left. So, so you understand how this guy feels. A part of his family has gone, Timothy. And he said, we love you enough to let that happen in our lives. Now, look at what he says. Okay? We sent Timothy, who is our brother and God's fellow worker in spreading the gospel of Christ, to strengthen and encourage you in your faith, so that no one would be unsettled by these trials. You know quite well that we were destined for them. In fact, when we were with you, we kept telling you that we would be persecuted. It turned out that way, as you well know. All right? He said, we wanted to make sure that you weren't adversely affected by what you heard's going on with us. And we want to know for sure that you're not being adversely affected by what's going on with you. When you have a relationship with people in the body, what do we understand? people are going to have issues. Satan is going to come along and pop you right in the mouth. Right? He will. You know, and we talked about it last week. He said Satan had hindered us, had blocked our path from coming back to you. And we talked about that last week. About, well, here he says it again, but he says it now. But he said, I want to make sure that Satan had gotten in the middle of your life, that Satan had got in there, and he said, so that no one would be unsettled by our time. You know quite well that let's see where he goes. I missed it. Well, we're going to get there. We haven't got there yet. You know, I'm getting ahead of myself. That's all right. You know, and you know, when you look at the affection that he has for them, and the compassion he has for them, and he wants to encourage, he wants to make sure that when Timothy goes, he encourages and strengthens their faith. Right? How do you think he's going to pull that off? What do you think is going to happen when Timothy gets there? Remember, he's a young convert. He's not been a convert that long. All right? He's been a convert a very short time. This not years and years and years. This is maybe a couple of years is all. He's been a convert. What do you think Timothy can give to the situation, and why would Paul send him there? What do you think? How dynamic must this young man have been for Paul to say, I'm not going to send Silas. I'm going to send Timothy. What do you think Timothy is going to bring to the table? What do you think he'd bring? John, what do you think?
I think that Timothy was a young man. I think most young men are braver than older men.
Okay.
And it's kind of interesting when you look at that word unsettled,
Mm-hmm.
you see here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's the only place in the New Testament that the Greek word for unsettled is used. Paul
Yep.
uses it in this text
Yep.
right here.
Yep.
The only place.
What is some when it has that verse in verse 3? What is some of yours translated as when it says unsettled? Mark, what does yours say? When it says so that no one would be unsettled by these trials. Disturbed. Disturbed. It's kind of a yes, ma'am. Afflictions. Okay. Yeah. John.
The actual Greek word is sail.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually the motion of a dog's tail.
Yeah.
It's in wagging.
Yeah.
You look that up in Strong's
Yeah.
coordinates 4525, but what is also relative to sail, which is uncontrollable tremoring or vibration.
Mm-hmm.
Some of these people were scared to death.
They were scared. You know, and if I start repeating this, because for some, when you get way back over there, they can't hear. So there is a definite distinction in that word, what that word means. You know, unsettled is okay, disturbs better, afflicted, but the actual word means that they are terrified. He said, I don't want you to be terrified by these trials that you've heard that we're going through and that you're going through. Because if they imprisoned Jason that day looking for Paul, what do you think they would do after that? What do you think they would stop? How much persecution you think would happen there? How many trials you think would come? You know, I want you to look at John 16. All right, just one verse here. John 16. Look at verse 33, and then we're going to go back to chapter 15. Look at chapter 16, verse 33. This is what Jesus told them. Now, remember, this is a dialogue. This is a prayer. This is a dialogue to the disciples. Chapter 15, 16, and part of 14, 15, 16, and 17. This is where, right before Jesus is going to be taken prisoner, right before he's going to go to the garden, this is what he prays. This is what John records for us, okay? And I want you to look at verse 33. I have told you these things so that in me you may have peace. In this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Now look at chapter 15. Now this is still part of the dialogue, okay? Look at what he says in verse 18. If the world hates you, keep in mind that it hated me first. If you belong to the world, it would have loved you as its own. As it is, you do not belong to the world, but I have chosen you out of the world. That is why the world hates you. Remember the words I spoke to you. No servant is greater than his master. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you also. If they obeyed my teaching, they will obey yours also. They will treat you this way because of my name, for they do not know the one who sent me. So what is the promise here? What's he telling? And he says, and if you go to chapter 17, he said, my prayer is not just for you. My prayer is for everyone that hears the message through your words. So that means us. 2,000 years later, he's talking that text just to you and said, you know, if they persecuted me, they're going to persecute you. You know, you look at the chaos of the world around us. Okay? The chaos that people are trying to make look normal. And it's becoming more and more normal. Chaos is becoming more and more normal. And peacefulness is becoming more and more abnormal. So you know that Paul is going through struggles, and they're going through struggles. So when you look at this and you said, okay, you know, that we're struggling here, and you know, so, you know, I'm going to send Timothy, and Timothy's going to strengthen and encourage you. So John said that Timothy's a young man. He has more courage than an older man does. He can say things, do things. Now he's kind of I won't say stupid. I won't say that, but we're not as fearful, I guess. We're 10 foot tall and bulletproof. We got to get older to figure out we're not 10 foot tall and bulletproof, right? You know, you coach a bunch of high school kids. How many of them think they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof?
Oh yeah, a bunch of them.
Bunch of them.
Yeah,
Most all of them.
Put them in the weight room a little bit. Get a little stronger.
And then they really, you know, yeah, they really. I know how my youngest son was. Man, you couldn't live with him. You know, put him on the track. He runs and lift weights, and I go, "Have you lost your mind?
Exactly.
You're not that tough, dude." I said, "I will come at you with a 2x4. You're not that tough." You know, I had to tell him that once. I had to tell him. I said, "Dude," I said, "you're going to the hospital. I'm going to jail, but you're going to the hospital. I promise you." You know. The point is that you're right. So Timothy's kind of going courage. He's going to go there. What do you think they need? What are they going to need to strengthen their faith and encourage them? What are they going to need, David?
I think Timothy focused on Jesus Christ
Okay.
completely. That's why.
If you drop your pants and let somebody come at you with a knife, I guarantee you're focused on Jesus. Guarantee it. Go ahead, finish.
No, that's what I was going to say.
So, but what is it? What are they going to need Timothy to bring to the table? What do you think they're going to need? You've been under the knife, under the gun before. You've been pulverized and beat up by Satan before. What would you need? What would you need in your struggle? He can't talk to them about marriage and all that. He can't talk to them about kids. He don't have none, so you can't talk to them about that.
Courage.
Courage. Commitment. Yeah. Being dedicated. Right?
Perseverance.
To persevere. To keep on keeping on. You know, to say, you know, I know it's hard, but you're not the only one going through this. We were in Philippi. They went through it. You know, we passed through this town and you went through it. Now we're in Athens and they're going through it too. You know, it happens everywhere. And then you could remind them of what John told. You know, because you remember, I don't know what gift that Timothy had, but Paul had laid his hands on him and given him a gift. I don't know what that was. I have no idea. But at that time, miraculous gifts were, they could lay their hands on people. They could do stuff, you know, that we can't do. And it was there to confirm the word. Mark 16 tells us that. So what do you think, you know, and I got to ask you, Michael, you know, well, I'm going to stop. You know, I don't care how young you are. I have learned something having cold here. It don't matter how young you are. It don't matter how long you've been at this. You know, if God's called you, and I believe, I told somebody the other day, I believe when we were struggling with the things we were struggling with, Cole was not even baptized into Christ yet. And I believe God already had him picked out. God already knew what he was going to do. When he presented the gospel to him, when the time was right, and he presented the gospel to him, I believe he knew what Cole was going to do, and he knew that one day he was going to bring him here. I believe that with everything I have. Because I was involved in all the stuff that went on that you guys don't know about. So I've seen it. And I've seen it. you know, and I've sat down and studied with him. You know, I look at him sometimes and I say, how in the world do you know the stuff you know and you've been at this 5 years? I've been at it 50 years almost. I learned something the other day. You know, we're reading something and I'm going, and Cole had brought it out. He brought it, said, he said, I want you, we were gonna, it was an obscure text in Numbers. And I said, are we really going to deal with this? Or are we going to move on? You know, he said, no, we got to do this. I said, what's there? What is, I don't understand. Why? Then he started talking. I'm going, uh-oh. Youch. You know, I mean, you produce them. You got to watch most of it because, you know, you got to come down sometimes and cut out stuff in the middle, you know. And so she has to listen to all of it. And I'm going, man, I didn't know that. And I don't have a problem saying that. Man, I did not know this. I had not seen this before. And it's you know, you have to go and watch it. But, you know, a young man can, especially when he's passionate and he's driven and he's God-centered, he can bring things to the table that us old-timers, and that's what he's going to do with this thing in May. He's going to torque you guys up, man. I promise you. You're going to look at him and say,
for too long, we believed that this was the only source of information that we ever needed.
mm-hmm,
You know, like he was talking about this morning, the evidence of the resurrection,
mm-hmm.
secular writing of the day, there is overwhelming evidence. For people to say that we just take it on faith and we believe it because it says, no, you have tremendous amounts of evidence from the day, from eyewitnesses that
From writings in the 1st and 2nd century.
we're, I think Robert just got finished with biblical interpretation. Chris is fixing to start it. I'm in the middle of it. And you want to find those truths, you got to learn how to study.
Yeah.
You got to learn how to take this thing apart, take your biases and set them aside, and look at the writings of the day. And, you know, you've said it before, and Cole reminded me of this the other day. When you step into the text, you want to smell what was in the air.
Right.
You want to feel the
Right.
dirt.
Yeah.
And those people that wrote, you know, it is true. Those that seek are going to find.
Yeah. He said, knock and the door will be open, seek and you will find. If you want, and Cole was passionate. Well, you don't think Timothy was like that? That's why Paul could send him. So what is he going to bring to the table? He's going to bring that passion, that compassion, that empathy. He's going to have seen it. He's going to bring all those things that the Holy Spirit is growing in him that those people may not have gotten to yet. And he's going to bring that to them. So my next question is, what have you needed in your life to strengthen your faith? What have you needed to encourage yourself? What have you needed God to do in your life to send someone to you to strengthen and encourage your faith? You know, I mean, if you're looking at this text and you say, well, he sent Timothy, well, what about, has he ever sent somebody to you to encourage and strengthen you? Has that ever happened for you? Did you always like what you were told? Did it always make you comfortable what you were told? No, it does. Timothy's going to go there and tell them some things they probably don't want to hear, but they're going to need to hear for them to grow past it and get better, right? So if you look at this and say, okay, I want my strength, I want my faith to be stronger. I want to be encouraged. You know, what encouragement would you need? I mean, you know, Jeanette right now has got a daughter that got run over. You don't think there's some encouragement needs to happen there? You know, they're talking about doing some fundraisers, and we're talking about doing a bake sale, you know, like we did when Joe Beth was here. Remember that? We did it in the foyer, and she made $1,000 in a couple of weeks. You know, I mean, that's going to be encouraging to everybody. That'll encourage people. You know, how did you need your, you know, when he says here, he said that to strengthen and encourage you in your faith. How is it going to make you stronger? Somebody come in and encourage you, and what are you going to need? Yes, sir.
Only by catching at your weakness and him bring you out of that weakness can he even work and for you to see his glory.
And what he's going to have to do sometimes is use somebody to come to you. He uses Timothy here. You know, he uses people in our lives. You know, people have come to us, have come to you in your life. You know, somebody maybe in this room has come to you and said, hey, I think there's a problem. What can I do to help?
God
Yeah.
has to use his human vessels to work through.
That's exactly right. He absolutely does. And so when you look at this and understand that Timothy was the guy, and ask yourself, who was the guy in my life? Or when have I been that guy that God could use to put me in somebody's life and I could encourage them by lifting them up and encourage them? You know, I use Bobby when Georgia went down. I use Bobby. I use Sue and Pam, use them all the time, you know, in certain situations. You know, I mean, when Pam and Sucker was here, we encouraged each other a lot of times to elevate ourselves to a better level spiritually. And that my wife was there in the end. When Pam needed someone, she was there to help her because she could open up to Georgia and say some things that she said that only Georgia knows what she said. The fears that she had and the concerns that she had about leaving at the time when she left. So, there's all kinds of ways that God uses that. Here he shows us Timothy. That's what he's going to go do. Now look at verse 4. It says, in fact, when we were with you, we kept telling you that we would be persecuted. And it turned out that way. So you well know. For this reason, when I could stand it no longer, I sent to find out about your faith. I was afraid that in some way the tempter might have tempted you and our efforts might have been useless. We talked about this at length last week. I'm not going to really get into it a bunch because we talked about Satan being in the way and being an obstacle in Paul's life and in Silas and Timothy's life. We looked at different texts last week. It says that he masquerades as an angel of light. He's a liar and a murderer. Remember, he's out to deceive the believers. The one thing you need to be aware of, all right, that Satan does not want you or me or us to promote the gospel. Okay? He does not want us to promote the plan of salvation to a lost world. He does not want us to do that. And so he's going to mess up in our life. Yes, ma'am.
And I think a prime example of that is what's happened with our country today on Easter is now Transgender Day, because Satan can't stand the thought of Christ being the forefront. Focus.
When you have leadership, I'll tell you, I saw a YouTube thing the other day, and a lady got up in front of a city council, and she was reading from a manuscript. She said, I want to read you this manuscript. And it's my 12-year-old daughter was required to read this out loud in her fourth or fifth, whatever class it was. I don't remember what class it was. And she started reading. She got about 20 seconds in, and a lady on the panel stopped her and said, "Stop! Oh, wait. We have a, I don't remember what the word was she used, but we don't allow profanity, and we don't allow anything in here with sexual content." And the lady said, "That's really strange, since y'all have approved this manuscript to be read by my 12-year-old daughter in that class. Chaos has become normal, and normal has become chaos." It is what it is, guys. It is what it is. And you need to understand that what's normal now is having a National Pride Day on Easter. I don't expect anything less from them. I don't.
But that just shows you Satan's alive and well and continually trying to foil our purposes.
We're doing I don't know if it's in the next another week or something. They're doing a satanic thing, some kind of did Cole talk to you about it? He was. Yeah. I don't know what it was exactly, but what it was is Cole said him and Mark were going to go do this. They were going to set up a booth and talk to people and pray with people and ask them if they needed help. But they didn't have enough time. He found out about it too late to put it together. So he's going to plan on it for next year, and him and Mark are going to go, and they're going to go to this. I don't know, where was it at?
I don't know. It's some kind of like market days, but it was, tarot card readings, palm readings.
Yeah. So he was going to go set up a booth, Church of Christ booth, and he was going to man this booth. He said, "I'd do it over there all day long." He said, "I love doing that stuff." And I'm going, dude, but he does. And I look at Timothy and I said, he's our Timothy. He's our Timothy. And he doesn't, we might not do it ourselves, but you know what? He gives us courage. He gives us courage. I'll go over there. I think it'd be a hoot. To go over there and just talk to some of these folks, and not to criticize them, but just to help them to try to see the truth. And want to know, the one thing you don't do, if you've learned about a guy like Timothy or a guy like Cole, don't get in a debate with him. You better have your ducks in a row. You get in a debate with him, he's gonna screw you into the dirt if you don't watch out. He's that good. and what he does. So, when you look at this and I say, the people have been unsettled by this trial. They've been in despair. They're ripped apart by these trials and the persecution. And it turned out that we, as well as for this reason, when I could stand it no longer, I sent to find out about your faith. I was afraid that in some way the tempter might have tempted you and our efforts might have been useless. Does Satan have the power to turn our work into useless work? Yes, it does. You go read the story of Job. Go read it. And you read what Job does and what God allows Job to do. He takes the hedge of protection off of Job and turns Satan loose on him. And the only requirement in the end is you can't take his life. You can do anything else you want to him, but you can't take his life. And I've asked my class before, and I've asked you before, you think God still allows Satan to do that today? Yeah, I do. I believe that happens. And I look at this and I say, the only way, and I told you all this last week, only way the tempter can be successful is that you allow him to be. That you make choices that will allow the tempter to be successful in your life. God's plan is to save you. Satan's plan is to destroy you. The choices you make, it's going to be who's going to win. That's how it works. Persecution is going to come. He says, consider it all pure joy when you face trial and tribulation, because the testing of your faith develops perseverance. In another text, he says, endure hardship as discipline, because God disciplines those he loves. He's looking for a fruit, a harvest of peace and righteousness, is what he says in that text. That's what he's looking for. Satan's looking for you to destroy you, to bleed you, gut you, and destroy you. That's what he's looking for. And if you allow him from the world to dominate you, then you undermine the ability God has to take care of you. You won't allow him to do it. Yeah.
I heard a song the other day, and it really speaks to this. It says that the voice you listen to is going to win the fight.
Mm-hmm.
You're either going to listen to Satan or you're going to listen to God.
Yeah.
But in the end, whoever you listen to.
Did y'all hear that? Now we've got young people that have been listening to some of these guys out there, and now the thing's starting to unravel. All right, there's all kinds of accusations floating around about all kinds of people. I mean, there's a big time preacher in Dallas that maybe is in the center of this thing. I mean, it's all over out there. The person you listen to is the person you're going to follow. If you're going to listen to Satan, you're going to follow him. If you listen to God, you're going to follow him. Simple as that. It's not rocket science, guys. Trials and tribulations and persecutions are going to come. If you follow Christ, he does not want you to be following Christ. He's going to step in your world. That's just what he does. Okay? You have to be ready for it, be aware. That's why it's so important for us, and we talked about it last week, to be a family, to be connected together as a family. I told Vic was going to be gone for 3 weeks. I said, do not forget where home is. I remember when Dennis and Julie Tom left. I said, remember something, this is always home. We'll send you out as missionaries, but you can always come home. This is always home. I want us to feel that way. I want people to feel that way, that this is home. This is where my support comes from. This is where my passion comes from. This is my fire comes from. And if it's not, then let somebody know why it's not. The only way we can encourage and strengthen you is if we know. How are we going to know? How are we going to know? And don't expect us to do everything that you think we ought to do, because we don't know. And we're only human, guys. All right? We make mistakes. Yes, we make mistakes. I make mistakes. Yep. So do you. So do we all. So when you look at this, we got some time. Look, let's go on. I want to move on because I want to get into something here. But Timothy has just now come to us from you and has brought good news about your faith and love. He has told us that you always have pleasant memories of us and that you long to see us, just as we also long to see you. Therefore, brothers, in all our distress and persecution, we were encouraged about you because of your faith. Now we really live. For now we really live, since you are standing firm in the Lord. How can we thank God enough for you in return for all the joy we have in the presence of our God because of you? What did he say here? Man, we got a great report. Man, it was awesome. Timothy came back and said, man, you guys are great. You guys are longing for us like we long for you. Man, everything's good. Everything I was afraid of is not happening. Y'all are doing well. God be praised. And then look at what he says in verse 8. For now we really live, since you are standing firm in the Lord. I got a couple of texts I want you to go to, all right? First one I want you to go to is Philippians chapter 1. I don't know if we'll get through all three of these, because we've got, there's one of them I really want to get to. Look at Philippians chapter 1. Look at verse 27. Whatever happens, all right, got it? Whatever happens, no matter what it is, persecution, great stuff, blessings, whatever. Someone dies, you lose a job, get sick, whatever happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Right? Then whether I come and see you or only hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in one spirit, contending as one man for the faith of the gospel. Who's he writing this to? The church at Philippi, where he was in jail, and the Philippian jailer and Lydia, the seller of purple, these people are all involved in that church. So you stand firm. And he says, whatever happens, because what does he know? It's going to get, what do I know is coming? I have no idea about details, but you know what ISIS just blew up a thing in Russia. If they'll approach Russia and blow something up, what do you think they'll do here? You don't think there's something coming down the road? I don't know if it is or not. You know, our guys on the safety team are always aware of things that are going on and things that they might do to protect this place because we don't know. But what I do know is something's going to happen. Somewhere. Satan is going to unravel something somewhere. So no matter what happens, conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel. How many of you have seen the movie Saving Private Ryan?
What?
Saving Private Ryan. Any of you ever seen that movie?
Oh, yeah.
Captain Miller is in charge. He's got a ranger platoon. He's in charge of finding this private named
Oh, yeah.
Private Ryan.
Yeah.
And they find him. Finally find him. And he says, I ain't going back with you. He's already lost all of his family. I mean, all of his brothers are all dead. And they decided, we're going to go get this guy out. We're going to bring him home. His mama's not going to have to read another telegram about another son that died. And they go through the whole movie looking for this guy. And they finally find him. He says, I ain't going with you. How come? Well, because my family's here. These are my brothers. I've lost all my brothers. These guys, I'm here. And right at the end of the movie, the Captain Miller gets shot, and he's dying. He's leaning up against a tank, and he's shooting a pistol at a tank coming up, and he's shooting his pistol, and he's already shot. And all of a sudden, the tank blows up, and you think he shot it, and it's a British tank killer, and it's blown this tank up. And Ryan goes up to him, and all he says is, "Earn it, earn it." And every time I hear that, I see that clip in that movie, I think of this verse. Conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel. Earn it. Live your life in a way that you earn what God did for you. Earn it. No matter what happens. God doesn't care if this struggle happened, that struggle happened, this other struggle happened. He don't care. You know why? Because the plan is, I'm going to take you to heaven. I got a plan. You're not going to, this is not going to be over here. It's going to be down there. See, God can see the plan. You can't. That's why we have to trust him. I have to trust him. He knows what he's doing. No matter what happens. My wife has a stroke and it gets bad and I don't know what's coming. It's fine. Conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel. No matter what. No matter what. That's what you do. I got two more texts that we're going to go to. One of them is in 1 Peter and one of them is in 2 Peter that we're going to go to through here. And I want, about standing firm. Remember what he said, okay? Remember what he said. Stand firm in the present. Look here, I'm going to read it and then we're going to be done. He said, for now we really live since you are standing firm in the Lord. And remember, this class next week is going to be wrapped around standing firm in the Lord. All right, we'll see you. Thanks, guys.